Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It's Felicia Siobhan with Cfea, the Central Florida Entertainment Advocacy. And I'm excited to chat with you guys tonight. We're going to be doing our CFEA Spotlight, and we have a special guest for tonight's show, I should say. But before we continue, I would encourage you to like this broadcast, share it on your page so that we can let people know that we are on and we're talking and we're ready to chat, and even tag someone in the comments. Let them know, hey, tune in. We're going to be talking about some good news tonight. So it's going to be a really interesting and fun conversation. So that's what I want to encourage you guys to do primarily. And if you're watching, let me know that you're here. I would love to engage with you. We're going to be able to open up and ask questions, but most of all, we just really want to make this an open dialogue. So again, it's Felicia Siobhan with CFEA. I am not Mika King. I know I'm streaming on her page, but we work together in this, and I'm excited to chat tonight. So again, like, share, and comment. Let us know that you're watching. We are excited to chat. So I'll be looking to see who's here. Let us know you're here. I'm sharing this to my personal page as well. Awesome. I see people tuning in. Thank you guys so much. Let us know that you're here, and we're excited to chat. So, hey guys, I'm so excited to just hop and jump into our CFEA Spotlight tonight. But before I do, if this is your first time encountering the Central Florida Entertainment Advocacy, I want to welcome you. So what started off in July, about a couple months ago now, as a forum, a gathering of people, has now become a full-on organization, and we're more passionate than we've ever been. So in July, Mika King and I and other volunteers who were so helpful in doing this brought our industry together. We wanted to have a night where we could address some of the inequities and injustices within our entertainment industry, particularly here in Central Florida. And we wanted to do something that hasn't been done before. We wanted to allow people to tell their stories, for their voices to be heard, to bring to the forefront what people were experiencing and enduring, because where there was silence, there was also shame. And not only that, but we weren't, there was so much happening that needed to be changed. And on the heels of everything that was happening in our world, the injustices to Black and brown bodies, particularly the death of George Floyd, we knew that the time was now, and it was important that we did this now. So we brought everyone together, and what we thought were just going to be a couple days literally has expanded beyond that. And from that, what we are so grateful for is not only that people got to tell their stories, but our industry listened. Industry professionals, Black, white, Latinx, Indigenous, everyone came together and listened, and they committed throughout those 3 days to change. They committed to action to make our industry what it can and should be. And from that, so much has happened. We've had so many conversations, so many meetings, but most of all, we're seeing change happen, tangible and real change happen. And we want to highlight that. We believe it's important to celebrate those little victories along the way, because the work is challenging, but it's worth it. And as we highlight things that are shifting in our industry, we believe it will help to continue to spread change and keep that momentum going, and celebrate how we are working together. So without any further ado, I am so excited to bring our spotlight guest on tonight. You may know her as Joyce. She works with the Imagination House and is also a board member on the Orlando Fringe Festival, and has been in serving in that role for many years now. And she's someone I would call a secret weapon, someone who's behind the scenes making things happen because she's passionate about equality and equity in our community. So I'm going to bring her on so she could tell you a little bit more about what she does. But without further ado, I'm going to add Joyce.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for saying yes. Thank you for saying yes. We're so glad, Mika and I are so glad that we got to start to work intimately with you, and that we could see what you are doing and have been doing and have just been so inspired by it. So we knew it was important to add this to the context of the larger conversation that we're having.
Great, thank you.
So Joyce, why don't you tell them, hello, fabulous. Someone said, hello, fabulous women. Thank you, guys. Thank you for that comment. Thank you guys so much. Again, comment, tag someone, let them know we're going to be talking tonight. Share this because we want to share the good news of what's happening in our community. And again, Joyce, I brought you on and I said a little bit, but can you give people just a little bit about your background and how you've been working in Central Florida?
Sure. My name is Joyce Arbucias. I am one of the founding partners of the Imagination House. We're an entertainment production company, a creative agency, if you will, and also one of the founding partners of Performer Stuff, which is basically a place for performers to get source material, to get tips and tricks, and to be able to get advice. And then beyond that, as you mentioned, I have been with the Orlando Fringe, working with the board for about 8 years now.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we actually got a chance to meet because of the forum. That's how our paths collided. Mm-hmm. So tell me, what was your experience being a viewer at the forum, and what were some of the biggest takeaways that you had?
Sure. So it was interesting because I feel like, as you mentioned, a lot was sort of colliding and happening at the same time, right around that time. Right. And I was invited to the forum, really didn't know what to expect, didn't know, what was going to happen. And I think that the biggest takeaway for me was I didn't know that so many of my friends and colleagues were hurting. I didn't know that there was this whole sort of extra layer of challenges that were happening in a community that, we love to say that Orlando is really diverse and we have people from all over the world and we have people who travel here, attracted by sort of how special a destination this is and the tourism and the opportunities that the parks offer. And so I guess, I knew there were challenges. I didn't know they ran so deep. And some of the really courageous shares that people were really authentic about, I think they were really striking. And even with everything else, like you said, it was during everything that was happening, the George Floyd murder, the protests, all of these things were going on in the big wide world. Right. And it was very stark and very confronting to have the people that we know and love say, this is my experience every day. This is my experience in the place of work. And so I think much like many of the other folks who have been working with CFEA since that moment, we were left with the really strong commitment to do anything we could in our power to make change happen.
Right. And I love that you said that, because that's literally the response that we've been getting. And we had an opportunity, Meek and I, to meet with you and other production company leaders and gig work professionals who, are offering gig work to our community. And what we're finding is that a lot of our industry worked in silos. So you have the theaters over here, and then you have production and gig work over here, and then you have the dance studios over here. And we weren't having a larger conversation about if our industry was safe, if it was equitable, if we were truly, and you said something that resonated with me, not reflecting what Central Florida actually is as far as representation and inclusion. And we chatted earlier this week, and you said something that just struck me about the percentages of Black and people of color in our industry and what that actually looks like in actualization with our companies and the art that we're producing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if Central Florida is, statistically, let's say 50% Caucasian, it's actually a little under that. Mm-hmm. Then is that the reflection that we see on our stages? Is that the reflection that we see right now in how shows are being cast and that's just on stage, but also, sort of behind the scenes and backstage. Right. And operating in silos is a really great way to describe it, I think, Felicia, because I think that there's a lot of really great talent and they're working in mini silos that they've created, whether they've created them for safety or whether they've created them out of habit to, just because, well, this is the person I always worked with, so this is the person I work with now. Right. I don't know that there's always, specific malice in how it happens. I just think these little silos are born and we sometimes aren't even aware of each other. And I think that you guys sort of cracked that open in a way that created this huge awareness, and it's something you can't unknow. Like once you know it, you can't unknow it.
Right.
Which is the power in it, right?
Yeah, definitely. And we didn't know what the response was going to be. We hoped it would be positive, but I think even within us, that type of awareness emboldened us to keep going past the event so that we could actually see change happen in our industry. So we've been so grateful to have conversations with production companies and theaters. And what we're finding is that each silo and each niche of our industry has a particular focus and things that they really needed to attack. I know on our, one of the things that was unique about our forum was that we brought up points of action, which were very direct, very concrete, very actionable things that people needed to do. It wasn't just, talk. We wanted to see action. We wanted to see that now. Were there any one of those points of action that stood out to you or that you thought was, super important or that could easily be done right then and there?
I think there are points of action that I think the general theme for me is little teeny baby steps are just as important as giant steps. And I know we talked about this a lot. I think that some of the things that were talked about on the forum are really easy. They're easy things for us to implement. And I'm not, my quote unquote silo isn't gig work specifically. I'm in more of a production place, but it's really easy to make sure you have a microphone in the right skin tone. Mm-hmm. Like, that doesn't take a lot of work to just go, we're not going to put all of the people of color in a white microphone. That doesn't take a lot of work.
Right.
It doesn't take a lot of work to have, tights in multiple colors. That doesn't take a lot of work.
Yeah.
Other things take more work, and that doesn't make them harder per se. They just have to be more thoughtful. So, we've talked a lot about how often as production companies, we are the middleman or the liaison between the client and the performer. And I think that there has to be careful thought on how do we maneuver that in a way that allows us to be not just an ally, but an advocate for all of the beautiful talent that we're working with.
Wow.
So, I think that was something that in the scale of what we're talking about, that's something that will take thought and a process so that it sticks. I think ultimately we want the client, whomever that client is, to be left with profound change on their side, not just a one-time contract negotiation.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we have a conversation in a way that creates awareness? And even before that, how do we normalize the conversations so that it doesn't have to be a big deal to bring it up? And then how do we do it in a way that creates, some sort of lasting impact?
Yeah.
So once you go, this isn't okay, and why it isn't okay, you want that person to agree and see it as a new way of being that they're going to carry into all the projects.
Yeah, I love that you said not just an ally, but also an advocate. I think that is such a strong statement and a stance to make. What can you delineate what you feel like the difference is? And I mean, and I know we've talked about this as well. You are a Latin woman in this community, a Latinx woman in this community. And that goes into play as well. And that's a part of the conversation that CFEA believes is very important to discuss. But from your heart and your perspective, what do you feel the difference is with just being an ally and actually being an advocate?
Sure. I mean, I think that we have to acknowledge, I am a light-skinned Latinx woman. That means that I have to be honest and aware of the fact that I can move in white spaces in a different way than one of my colleagues or a performer that I might work with who has darker skin. And so I think that I have a responsibility to speak up in a different way. I have a responsibility to have eyes and ears in the room that can move a conversation forward in a different way.
Right.
And that isn't to say that, the Latinx community, and I know we keep saying we've had these conversations, but we've been having a lot of these conversations, I feel like many times are sort of in this middle place. Like, I'm brown, I'm not white, I'm not black. And obviously there's a rainbow, and I can't wait for a time that we have better nomenclature than calling people out by color,
I know.
You know what I mean? But I think that we have to acknowledge that we have to advocate for each other in any place that we can.
Yes.
And, it's a larger conversation. And I think that there's intersections of diversity and intersections of challenges. So being a Black man is a different experience than being a Black woman, and being, a gay white woman is different than being a heterosexual, white man. And so I think that we have to recognize those, and we have to be advocates for each other in every opportunity that we can. Mm-hmm. The first place we have to do that is by acknowledging the little places where we do have privilege.
Right.
And they're not everywhere. And I'm not saying that they are. I think there are places where we all encounter challenges, but anytime that we can advocate for each other, we should. And I think that advocating can, again, back to baby steps, I think it can be as simple as inviting someone to a meeting, inviting someone to an event that maybe wouldn't have been there, just so that they can be in the room. It doesn't always have to be earth-shattering.
Wow.
And I say that as I think it can be intimidating sometimes.
Right.
You and I talked about this. I'm a behind-the-scenes kind of person.
Yeah.
That's my role. I'm not a center stage performer. So I think, what can I do? And how can I make a difference? And sometimes it's just that. Sometimes it's just, hey, do you want to come be part of this? And just that invitation can be the distinction.
Absolutely. I love that so much, because we are talking, there's a larger conversation happening, and even our points of action are, very specific, but there are ways, it may take a while for a board to change. It may take a month, but tomorrow, today, you can have a conversation with someone and invite them to a meeting, invite them out to coffee, include them on a project that you're working on to expand your circle. to actually make a friendship and a relationship. And really, that is so phenomenal to me, only because I think one thing that we are facing with all the change that we are pushing, which needs to happen, is the fear factor, is that people, one, are naturally afraid of change. We are wired to not change easily, or else we'd have multiple, personalities and things. So there are things
Right.
that are set in place to keep us safe. And sometimes our boundaries feel like safety, but really, if we can redefine those things and see little ways that we can push the needle, little ways that we can break those boundaries and maybe just remove them because they might not need to be there. And we may have inherited those boundaries in those areas of separation. So it's a lot of, what can I do today? What can I do right where I am? What can I do with the influence that I have, the voice that I have, which I love, because then it's not about you. It's about the movement that you are trying to make and work towards.
Yes, thank you. I think that that's so important on both sides of it. First of all, it shouldn't be about us. It should be about the work.
Yeah.
But on the other side of it, it can be intimidating to think, do I have enough of a voice? Do I have enough influence to make a difference? And of course you do. It might be in one conversation with your mailman or your mom or your neighbor, you might make a difference. And we keep talking about the whole, like, you can't unknow things, you can't unsee things. I think once you choose to change, your filter and how you look at the world, I think then it becomes really easy to make those little changes.
Right.
Look at it. If your company puts out marketing materials, take a minute and look at the faces that you chose to be on the marketing materials.
Yes.
Was there diversity there? That takes, a few minutes. It doesn't seem like a giant change, but we also know that representation is so important that just by changing one image in your marketing material, it made someone feel included.
Right. And so, it's intentional. It's intentional.
Yes, absolutely.
You posted something today, or I don't know if it was today, but you posted something on your Facebook, and it just really stuck with me. You said, it wasn't, it was a quote that you posted.
Okay.
It says, no one is too small to matter. What you do is going to make a difference.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Every teeny little baby step makes a difference. And that is something that right now, during this crazy time and this crazy pandemic, when so many businesses are closed and people have limited contact, looking for ways to make a difference will shift a little bit. So you might be sitting at home or at your office going, well, I mean, we're not doing XYZ right now. And I think that's okay. I think you can still find a way to create something. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, with the Orlando Fringe, that was something that we jumped into right away.
Tell us about that. Tell us about what shifts and changes you guys made and how the impact was.
Well, what's exciting about Fringe is, I mean, first of all, I just love the Fringe. I think it's so unique. It's like no other arts festival, or event, because it is really like 100% unjuried, 100% uncensored. It's a lottery system to get into the show. And so going into it, honestly, we were like, we're totally diverse. And we have, how much more equal can it be? It's a lottery. You literally get your name drawn out of it.
That's interesting. Right? Yeah.
So, when you think about it, you go, I mean, it's not a juried festival. So pull the name out of the hat, there it is. But right out of the gate, Alana, who is the executive director, Lindsay, who is the producer, the board, everybody's like, all right, we got to get on right now. We need to look at what we're doing, figure out how we, are truly accessible, truly diverse. And not only are we promoting the fact that we want equity and diversity, but we're actively pursuing it. We're actively recruiting it. We're actively inviting people. And so we actually, we went in and started this initiative. And there are 3 subcommittees. One is specifically for the BIPOC community, one for the LGBTQ community, and one to address accessibility issues, everything from people who have, mobility issues, hearing impaired, vision impaired. So in our subcommittees, we have staff and board and volunteers and community members. What's great about that is it lets people kind of bring issues to the table and hold everybody accountable. So right away, we started looking at the lottery, and we had a diversity lottery, and I'm using that in air quotes, diversity lottery. And so we were like, we have a diversity lottery. Let's look at those numbers and how much success are we having and how's that going? And what we realized is, we had a small percentage of shows that we were offering as part of that lottery. And so we went to work, we rewrote all of our copy, we changed the title to our Amplified Voices Lottery, because that's really what the goal is. And we increased the number of shows from a small amount, 2 to 3% of the overall shows, to now committing to 30% of our shows being part of the Voices Lottery. So right out of the gate, like that was the thing that everybody went, okay, this has to happen immediately, because the lottery, because applications go live in September. So we want that to happen this year, like right now.
Yes.
That is in the grand scheme of the world, that's a tiny change, but it's a change that immediately impacts the artist community in Central Florida.
Absolutely.
Then Lindsay, our producer, put together a really great Friday showcase, and we wanted to showcase BIPOC artists. And so, just like we were saying, the shift is from, hey, we have a showcase if you'd like to be part of it, to, would you please come be part of our showcase? And that small shift, the invitation, the deliberate, intentional opening and invitation, I think, made a difference, because we had, 6 new artists who've never done the Fringe, who've never been here, come and showcase their work.
Love it.
Feel welcomed by our community. Again, it's one Friday event. We're excited and we're proud, and we know there's more work to be done. But what we're also aware of is these little events, these little shifts, these pieces that we're moving forward are making, I think, ripples in the pond.
Yes.
We've added 2 people of color to our board in the last.
Yes.
So we are, I think, super committed to doing that. And what I love about it is when we brought this suggestion, to the board, to the staff and board, there was no one saying, man, really? 30%? Like nobody. People embraced it. They're like, absolutely, let's do it. What else can we do? And that really just made me feel really proud of a group of people who want to move the bar. And again, it's like this little bit, and then next week we do another little bit, and change is happening.
Yeah,
right here. So we're excited about those things.
That is so amazing. I mean, and next year you're going to look back a year from now, and it'll be a completely different organization and different festival because of those little changes that you guys have made.
Yeah, but what's interesting, Felicia, is we put together a pretty extensive survey that we sent to artists, because what we also realized is there's a whole lot that we didn't even know we didn't know.
Right.
And it was shared on the CFEA, Facebook page, as well as it was sent out to a lot of artists. And what we wanted to know is, so if we have this platform and it's totally inclusive, in our minds, what doesn't feel inclusive about it to you?
Mm-hmm.
What can we change, and what is missing? And I think that was important because, and you and I have talked about this, like we have to normalize asking questions.
Right.
We have to make it not weird for me to reach out to someone and say, is there something here that makes you uncomfortable? Is there something here that makes you feel like you're not welcome, or that your art wouldn't be appreciated here? Because we'd like to make that change.
Right.
But if we never ask the questions, then there's no way for us to know how to make it better.
I love that so much, because you don't know what you don't know, and you only have your perspective. You can only see things naturally your way. I mean, we can look outside of ourselves, but you're going to have just your experience. And there was so much about what you said that I absolutely loved. First of all, shout out to Lindsay and the team for being so receptive and immediately wanting to jump and do something. I'm pretty sure you guys maybe didn't know immediately what you were going to do, but you knew you had to do something. And I think that type of responsiveness and willingness is what allows you to be creative, is what allows you to say, well, what can we do that if we don't have money right now? What's not going to cost us anything, but what can we do to make a shift and a change? And to know that you guys were all on board with that is phenomenal. Wow, I love that. And you brought up something that's, I think we really do need to talk about, because I think it's one of the things that stops people from reaching out, is the idea of recruiting versus inviting. The idea of, or, the fear of, I don't want to just get on my Facebook and be like, calling all Black people.
Right.
Where are the, so there are these attempts where people will put out statements and saying, hey, we're open. Hey, we're diverse. Hey, we want, anyone's story to be told, but that's not cutting it. That's not reaching people. And it's very impersonal, and it's falling flat. And I think, can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think there's a big difference between being intentional and going the other way.
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm not an expert on anything. I could just tell you that for me, I think back to being in school, and if you were sitting at the lunch table, there was a difference between having an empty seat and expecting somebody to just help themselves to it. Mm-hmm. Actually looking at somebody and saying, would you like to join us for lunch?
Yes.
So I think that that's the difference. I think whether it's Fringe or whether it's in our in our companies, in our day-to-day sort of work lives and family lives, we can intentionally invite people, and it doesn't have to be like we laughed about this week. It doesn't have to be creepy, weird, calling all Black people to my event. Like, it doesn't have to be that.
Yeah.
But but it can be a specific, I can say to you, Felicia, you're a director and a writer. How come you don't apply for Fringe? You could have a great spot there. Like, apply. There's an audience, there's a stage, there's people who want to see your work and hear your work and hear your point of view. And that's a different way to invite someone.
Yeah.
To come, versus saying, well, I mean, we had a platform, but nobody applied.
Oh,
there's a difference there. And I think that's the next step, maybe, for us. Well, let me say for me as someone who I feel like this is something I'm passionate about. This is something that's important to me. And every day I'm still learning. I finished these subcommittee meetings. And if any of the members were on this, I don't know if any of them are watching. I am such a super nerd at the end. I'm so lit up. I'm so excited because I learned something in every one of these meetings. We have an amazing community of people who are giving their time and sharing authentically a bunch of stuff that I didn't know, and that now that I do know, I'm like, okay, well, that just shifted my point of view a little bit, and that just shifted my point of view a little bit. And that's what's making the difference, I think, is it started with us, even with the forum. It started with the brave people who said, okay, I'm going to tell you from my authentic self what my experience is. That's what it took for a lot of people to go, okay, wow, something has to change. Something has to shift. So I think that's the next step for all of us, is to go, okay, we've been doing this. What's the next baby step we can take?
Right.
What's, one thing at a time, I get it, but, And I know, by the way, there are some people in our community that are making giant strides.
Right.
They really are. There are some real champions in Central Florida right now that are doing amazing work. And but I want to speak out for the folks like me that are like, can I make a difference? Can I make a little bit of difference today? And I think we all can.
I love that. And I think that's important to highlight, is that if we all have our hand to the plow in a way, wherever we are, and we're all pushing, what an industry are we going to have? It's going to be amazing, and it'll be different. It'll be something that we could be proud of. I love that. And the fact that you guys formed these 3 specific communities. So it's interesting because you guys could have just said, hey, let's just form a committee, and throw all the people that we may have overlooked in this one committee and give them a voice. But you were like, no, we want each committee to have their space and their time and our attention. And we want to hear them and continue to work with them hand in hand. I mean, that just shows the intentionality that I think it's going to take to make the difference and changes internally that we're trying to see.
Yeah, well, the intersection of some of these communities are reflected in some of the committees. There are people that sit on more than one committee and identify inside of more than one committee. And I think that's something else that we've talked about. You know, there are no sort of monolithic answers, like that we have to know that there are adjustments and changes that have to happen within each of these little sub communities. We did, our first meeting was a everybody in the pile meeting. And then very quickly within that first meeting, we went, okay, so we're going to have to break into subcommittees.
Wow.
The focus is different.
Yeah.
There are different things, and we can't give each of these areas the attention that it deserves if we're trying to kind of do 15 things at the same time. If we can break it up, then everyone can focus and can move the ball in that area. And then, but the committees as a whole, so we meet once a week, there is a committee meeting. And then once a month, there's sort of the general, let's all come back together and see what we're doing as individuals.
Right.
And what I love about that is the committees and the communities inside of there are aware and updated on what other people are doing to move the ball forward. And that takes us back to, if our intention is equity, if our intention is to be a reflection of our community in Central Florida, then we have to keep checking on our neighbor. My gosh, especially right now with the earth shattering, the earth shaking, the way it has over the last few days and few months, obviously, checking on our neighbors at every level is the only way to make lasting change and get through this.
I love that idea of neighborliness, and us working together and checking on your neighbor. That is so powerful. I think it just reinforces the belief that, one, we're stronger together, but we can't do this without each other. Like Cfea cannot do it without the theaters that we've been talking to, and without Fringe, and without, your companies, and vice versa. Like, when we actually come together, that's where our power is. That's where we can see how beautiful and diverse we are, but how much we can actually do.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I haven't talked a lot about, but I also, Performer Stuff is a company that is probably a good amount of it is aimed at young people, like 14 to 25. It's kind of that high school performer into young college performer into just graduating. And we've talked a lot about this as well. Like, we have to reset the thinking at a generational level. I think that some of the conversations that happened in the forum about people not wanting to speak out because they were uncomfortable or afraid, or thought that then they would be labeled as a troublemaker inside of the talent pool. I think that we have to make that a shift happen with young people to know that, number one, we have to advocate for each other. That means if you're, a 16-year-old white kid and your 16-year-old friend happens to be a Black kid, and you see something happening, that you get to step up too. And I think we also have to empower young performers to know that it's okay to speak up. It's okay.
Yeah.
There's a respectful way. You don't have to, any performer never has to be disrespectful or rude or anything like that. But I think you can completely, in a respectful way, say to the director, I just want to make sure that you guys are going to have makeup that works with my skin tone. That's why not? Why not ask that? And if they don't, then be prepared to say, well, here's the makeup line I use. Here's the color that I use, or can I speak to the makeup artist? Why is that not okay? And I think it is, and it should be. And it's something that a 15, 16, 17-year-old, if we make that completely normal today, then think what 10 years from now our industry looks like.
Yes.
These aren't weird conversations. They're normal conversations.
I love that. And I love that you brought up the fact that the change that we are trying to make is not just for ourselves, but it is for the next generation, so that they don't have there will always be something to fight. There will always be something to change, but at least it won't be this burden. At least a Black performer can walk into a room and believe and know that the people there want them to be there, have invited them there, and that there aren't going to be massive amounts of oppressive influences and conversations. I think sometimes that's an aspect that we might overlook, but it's something to remember how much when we're talking about the impact that we can make and the influence that we can have. It's important to look beyond ourselves, specifically those who are coming up, to see how we can help them to be bolder, help them to be more compassionate and empathetic.
Yes.
Help them to see things differently. Because if not, they're going to just walk into the industry that we have right now. So I love that. And I love that you're, seeing some of that movement with your company.
Yeah. Well, I think that you and Mika have both said many times that part of being able to make accomplishments in this work is to be able to grant a certain amount of grace to people as they learn and as they change. And I'm so thankful for that, because sometimes these conversations are uncomfortable and they're hard, and that doesn't mean we shouldn't have them.
Right.
But I think that in order to have young people grow into adults that feel comfortable having these conversations, we have to make it okay in the room as the directors, as the producers, as the costumers, as the hair and makeup people who are already established in the industry. We need to be completely comfortable to have those conversations, whether they're about, wigs or makeup or anything, or also about, casting itself.
Right.
It's okay to question a casting decision if you can do it respectfully when you are, a college student, for example. If you're a college student and you're assigned something, I think it's okay to, after class, speak to a professor and say, so here's the thing, I have a question. I'd like to be read for this role. Is there a reason that I can't be the lead ingenue? Is there a reason?
Wow.
The most that can happen is that they'll say, well, no, that doesn't fit my vision, or whatever they're going to say. But I think what we have been saying to young people, and in particular, young people of color, is, listen, don't make waves. And I think there's a distinction between making waves and just asking a question.
Right.
And sometimes you got to make waves, by the way.
I was about to say, sometimes you need to make a wave, but I think don't be fearful of there being a wave by you asking maybe, the right questions. And even just hearing you saying, like, asking a professor, hey, I want to talk about your casting decision. Like, I'm like, oh, you know, just because it's been embedded, like you don't question, you're lucky to be even in the show, much less, you know, for you to think differently about the decision that is made. And you are ultimately nothing but a number. And that's a negative stigma that we have in our industry that really digs deep beyond this generation. However, it really does impact people of color and Indigenous people, because if everyone is a number, then Black people, Indigenous people, I don't know what decimals, I don't know what they would be, but it would not even be a part of that equation.
Yeah.
So
yeah, woo. I agree. I mean, I think we can make what I think in the past we were always told is don't make waves because you're lucky to be here. I think that was always the messaging. Right. And I think what we can say is you can make a wave, just don't perceive it always as making a wave. Asking a question doesn't have to have a negative connotation, is I think what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Asking a professor, you know, Professor so-and-so, can I speak to you after class? I really want to read for this role. I really want to sing for this role. Is there a reason why I can't be part of that callback? Is there a reason I can't do this? I think that the perception that we were given is that was making waves. And I'm saying, let's not call it that anymore. Let's just call it having a respectful dialogue with a professor or a director, or saying, you know, hey, I wasn't listed here. Can I go ahead and read for just this one role as well? They might say no, but they might say yes. And you might, you know, steal that role.
Right.
And support people. And I do want to tag on to that with something which always sort of comes up when I have these conversations, which is, okay, but what about typecasting? And, you know, I get it. Typecasting is real. I don't think it's something that we can completely ignore, but I think where we can question is the type that you have in your mind as a preconceived notion, is it critical to the storytelling? Or is it just an assumption that you made or a preconceived notion that you had?
Right.
You know, I think obviously there are roles that should be a specific type. I'm not, you know, because that's part of the storytelling. And then there are most roles that doesn't really apply. It's just how we've always perceived it. It's just what we always thought. It's just what we always assumed. So I think it's okay to question that. That's a harder one to break, I think, in the whole wide world of, you know, of big time theater and Broadway and everything else. I think in our community, we're seeing that done more and more often. I think people are creating sort of different roles and different opportunities. So that's
yeah, I agree with you. I think, and that extends even to film and television. I think that that idea of questioning and rethinking, it's going to take some time because of the people who ultimately are making decisions. But I think the more on a molecular level that we do that, the more that we will shift and be able to change that. And what we may not have control of, you know, a major film company and how they're casting a role. I mean, even though a tweet can get pretty viral and we can make some waves, you know, but what we do have influence over is our own community, our own production companies, our own theaters, you know, the things that are in our own backyards. That's where, you know, we're looking to see that immediately change. So I love that. And I'm going to continue to think about that, because I think even as a performer, there are just a lot of things that the form has opened up for us as Black people, where we're thinking about things that we were told or not even told. It's like you get to a point where, like, who told me that I couldn't? No one ever told me that I couldn't question this or ask for this, but it was implied. It was, you know, that behavior was displayed.
You know, Felicia, I think that some of it is from our parents. I mean, I'm a little older than you, but I think that I remember my dad telling me to, like, you know, don't have an accent because it'll be a crutch. You know, don't have you know, he named me Joyce, very American name. You know, as an immigrant, he was like, just blend, and things will be easier.
Wow.
And I acknowledge that came from his experience, and the idea that as a parent, you always want life to be easier for your children.
Yeah.
But I think that, I think back on that now, and what an interesting, sort of homogenization, that was sort of overlaid. And where did I carry that forward? Where did I carry just, what, lay low, it'll be easier, don't be the loud Spanish girl with the accent, interesting.
Oh
but
mm-hmm.
but I hear it as someone who arrived in this country, didn't speak the language. What was his experience? So the reason I bring that up is I think sometimes it's sort of embedded in there, even though someone did not specifically say, hey, don't ask a question at an audition. I think that somewhere under there is this idea of, what, just make it easy. And I'm kind of saying, I think it's okay to poke a little bit and ask some questions.
I love it. I love that, Joyce. I love that so much. I think that's for everybody who's watching here tonight, whether you're an ally or an advocate or, a person of color, a Black person in our industry. Let's poke a little bit. Let's ask questions to ourselves and to the systems and the environments that we're in. I think when we do that, that's when we're going to uncover ways that we can make small and significant shifts. Wow. I love that so much. There's so many good things that you said that I'm literally, while we're talking, taking notes about intentionality and just those little reminders of ways that we can do that. And if we've said anything, for those of you who are watching, again, thank you. Anything that resonates with you, if there are any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. We want to hear from you. Jane said, if someone perceives you making waves as a problem, that is the true challenge. I agree with you, Jane. That is the challenge. So we're encouraging everyone tonight to make a wave when you need to, poke when you need to, and ask that question. And let's redefine the connotation of what a wave is, because sometimes they're necessary. We're coming to the end of our time here, and it's been such a nice and free-flowing conversation. I really enjoy hearing from you and your perspective, which is refreshing. But I do want to ask you if you had any advice to organizations and companies. What would you give them? Any advice towards them who they want to make a change? What is something that you would tell them to think about or to do?
Well, I think advice is always a little dangerous, right? Because people have different things going on in their companies. What I would say, what I could share is what we are trying to do. I have a small company, so there aren't a ton of, it's not like I have 200 employees,
right?
But we have these conversations, intentional conversations, at least a couple times a week. We look at, when we do a review, I have a weekly meeting, for example, we do a review of, here's what's being changed on the website. Here's what's being changed in the marketing platform. We look at and say, are we inclusive? What does that look like? Did we acknowledge that there's a difference here? I think that, so looking internally first, I think looking at diversity training as something that you can offer at the very least to sort of your core staff,
right?
You can trickle down, and I want to acknowledge that some of these programs are still, because they're new, they're expensive. So I'm not suggesting that somebody has to go out and spend $10,000 on a diversity trainer to come in and take over their company, but there are a lot of resources out there, and just that little bit of awareness can make a difference. And then I would say, don't be afraid to speak up in any conversation, even in a way that's gentle. If someone makes an off-color remark, you can just go, "Ooh, that's not cool." You don't have to berate them or belittle or go down that route. I mean, obviously politically, the world is very charged right now.
Right.
But I think there's a way to gently remind people that something's not okay with you, or that maybe it could be phrased differently, or, hey, maybe you missed the mark on this, and do it in a way that is that feels inclusive. And then I would say ask questions. You and I talked about this. I think sometimes if you point something out, it's heard in a different way than if you ask the question. You know, if someone says, well, I think we need to cast it with an all-white cast. I'm just making that up. I'd say, really? So can you just walk me through why you feel that way before we start pulling the talents? Because maybe there's something you're trying to accomplish and we could do it in a different way. And it puts the onus back on the other person to really think through, why do they have that belief about this particular casting? Why do they think it has to be a certain way? And it might open up something for them in a different way.
I love that. Normalizing those conversations, asking questions, not being afraid to ask that question. Yeah. I love it. And ultimately having grace with yourself and each other.
Yes. Oh gosh, that's so important. You know, I think many of us have spent a lot of time doing this mental slideshow of places that we might have made really big mistakes over the years.
Yes.
Like, did I handle this well? Did I handle that well? And, you know, we're learning every day, but having grace with the people around you and having grace with yourself. Like I said, something that you and Mika have talked about so much, which is a gift for everyone in the community that's trying to move forward, is to know that we might stumble along the way, but we're still heading in the right direction.
Right.
And that's powerful.
Yes. Let's stumble forward.
Yes.
Let's fall forward. No one is perfect. No entity, organization is perfect. But if we have the same mind and we're working towards the same judgment and we make mistakes, we can learn to forgive and we can move forward. I think it's just important that we do move forward, because we want to create an environment where people can work towards that change and work it out. If not, then we could be doomed to stay just where we are. And so it's so important.
Yeah.
Well, I am overjoyed. I'm just overjoyed. You are such a light and have been so inspiring to me as a person, and I know to Mika as well. And we're so grateful that you once said yes to having this chat with us, but that you would graciously share your perspective, because what I love about your stance in the world and how you're approaching the work that you're doing is that you are constantly keeping the work as the forefront, the people that are going to be changed and impacted as the forefront. And you are, I don't want to say selfless, but I want to say you are a true advocate. And so I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing, the people that you're doing it with, those that you mentioned earlier at the Orlando Fringe and the Imagination House. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So if there's anything else you wanted to leave with those who are watching, you could share that. You've shared so much already, honestly. So you don't have to say anything else, but I wanted, we're wrapping soon, so I wanted to give you an opportunity to share any final thoughts that you might have.
No, thank you. Thank you for pushing this forward. I would just say thanks to you and to CFEA, and for some of the folks on this Facebook feed may not know that the leaders of the entertainment companies and the entertainment leaders and casting leaders and performers in this community really are doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and you guys are coordinating it all. So I know that the hard work is there, but you've created an opportunity to contribute.
Yeah.
That is something that I am grateful for. So thank you.
Thank you. And yes, and Mika's, she's not here, but I will sing her praises because she does so much behind the scenes for our community. And there are millions of meetings that I can't even be on. So just Mika, when you watch this, because I know you will, we just want to say we love you and thank you for the work that you're doing and for your boldness.
Yes.
We are where we are today because you took that bold step. And so thank you for having that torch. And as I wrap up, and before I'm going to, take you out and then I'll do some quick announcements, but I wanted to share a quote. I love quotes. And your quote inspired me to reach out back to one of my favorite quotes from Audre Lorde. And it says, sometimes we are blessed with being able to choose the time and the arena and the manner of our revolution. But more usually, we must do battle where we are standing. And it just reminds me of how you're approaching the work, knowing that everyone can do something. We all can make a difference. And it's the little shifts and changes that are going to impact us in the most magnificent way. So thank you so much, Joyce.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, that was amazing, guys. I hope that you were inspired by that. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to celebrate that shifts and changes that were happening with the Orlando Fringe. Some things that she said that I just want to highlight, and some of the things that she did that really are phenomenal was she and her team got together and they decided to rethink everything. Get feedback from people in the community who they were wanting to reach, because you don't know what you don't know. With the imagination, with her other company, they are reaching out towards the next generation. So all those little shifts here and there are ultimately going to have a huge impact. And that's what we're so excited about highlighting with our spotlight tonight. So again, thank you, Joyce, for spending time with us. And just a couple of quick announcements and things to look forward to from CFEA. So as you guys know, our industry right now is ultimately working through one of the biggest challenges and disappointments. So we want to extend our love, our prayers, as well as any resources that we have for all of our wonderful castmates at Disney and those in other companies who are experiencing this transition right now. As a community, now more than ever, it's important that we band together and that we support each other as much as we can. And so yesterday we had a mental health session, and we'll continue to have them throughout the year because we believe in the importance of prioritizing your mental health. And we know how much we are navigating right now, politically, socially, racially, and even just in our livelihood. So stay tuned for more information on our mental health sessions. You can find out more information by, of course, joining the Central Florida Entertainment Advocacy Group on Facebook so that you can get updated information on that. Again, if you are in dire need, we do want to encourage you to reach out to us. You can also reach out to GoPar, an amazing organization formed by different companies that have come together to really just be a place of solitude and resources for our community. And we're partnering with them, and we'll continue to partner with them to help assist artists locally, especially financially and with mental health resources as well. So just want to put that out there. And our hearts are with our cast members and friends and colleagues. We love you guys. You are the magic. You make this city something that it could not have been. And so just want to say thank you. And we believe that we're going to grow through this, and that doors will be open, and we're going to be better on the other side of this. So just want to say that. If you are interested in volunteering with CFEA, it's so easy to do. Oh my God, let me tell you what you can do. You can send an email to CFEAforum at gmail.com. Let us know. We have so many things coming up, and we do need the help. So, and if you have any questions, or you just want to connect with us, maybe you have some information you want to share or a resource, that's the way to get in touch with us immediately. And also thank you to all our volunteers, because CFEA is prepping for our launch. Woo! I would put in some music right there. But CFEA is prepping for our launch. And we are going to be launching our website. On our website, we're going to have the resources that we talked about. We'll also be launching the CFEA Black Book. So this is where all of the Black industry professionals will be listed in one place, so you can find an educator, you'll be able to find a director, you'll be able to find talent, anything really, all aspects of the industry, from like design to everything, tech, it's going to all be there. So there will be no more saying, oh, I can't find a Black person, or I can't find, I'm having trouble diversifying my project. We're going to have that resource for you. We'll also have ally training, a workshop coming up led by Savannah Simmerly. So that's going to be amazing. If you were on our forum, she led the ally portion, and she's just on fire and so passionate, and she's going to be a great resource to you as well. So other than that, we just want to say thank you for your support. Thank you for being so responsive and just being an awesome community. We stand with you guys. We love you guys, and stay tuned and keep in touch with us, because we will continue to highlight and spotlight positive movement, shifts and impact that's happening in our own backyard. Okay, guys. So thank you so much for spending some time with us tonight. We love you guys, and have a great rest of your evening.